So what's up guys, Brian Latimer here, and today we're going to do something a little different. I know most of the country is probably jam-packed with snow, and quite honestly I'm just as shy of ice fishing here in South Carolina. But I'm going to show you how to catch fish deep in the wintertime today. I'm out here on Lake Russell. This is a lake that's really close to my home. This is a pretty big lake. I want to say it's somewhere around 30,000 acres, but it is a deep water playground. This place is a place that you can almost always catch fish deep here on Lake Russell. You can catch them deep in the wintertime, you can catch them deep in the summertime. They almost always live 20, 25, 50, sometimes as deep as 60 or 70 feet deep. So I'm going to try to show you guys how I like to fish a drop shot and a Ned rig in the wintertime here on one of my home lakes. So one of the key components of it is using your electronics to find the fish. So you can see on one graph I've got my mapping pulled up here, and I'm actually idling around in some of these ditches that you see right here. A ditch is nothing but a low spot right here. You can imagine just the center of this pocket coming out. That's what that is. And I'm just idling around until I find a couple things. I'm going to look on structure and timber lines, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm looking for bait, looking for food. Fish feed this time of year in South Carolina. I know you guys are not used to it in other parts of the country, but the water is 51 degrees. It's really not that cold. 51 is a good temperature. So I'm going to idle around, look for some bait, look for some food, maybe even see a few fish on the graph. And then we're going to use a couple baits from Z-Man Fishing that you can use, a Ned rig in particular. And we're probably going to try to catch a couple on drop shot. There's a lot of different baits you can use this time of year, but those two in particular are really good for targeting fish this time of year. All right, let's start off with a couple baits here. I think we're going to start off with the TRD first of all. All right, there goes one right there. Uh-oh, it's a pretty good one. Drop down there in 28 foot of water. I'm gonna put the spot lock on right there. Spotted bass. I tell you, you're going to see a spotted bass on this show, didn't I? Let's flip him in here. That's a pretty nice one. So you see right there, caught that guy on the TRD. That's a mud bug color, 1/5 ounce head. And all I did is I got out, I'll show you what I was fishing, but I got out here on the edge of this bar, and it was like a timber line. And basically all I did was just drop my TRD right down. I saw a few fish on the graph as soon as I came past the timber, and that's where the fish were. So put that guy back, drop it back down, and see what else we can catch. There's a pretty good little wad of them down there. Usually when you, especially spotted bass, there's almost never just one spotted bass when you find them. When you find them, there's usually a pretty big group there. There's one right there. Oh boy, that might be a little better one there. A little better one. Let's see, he's about the same. They're glued to the bottom too. One thing you have to be careful about this time of year is oh God, that's a fat one, dude. Holy, look how fat that cat is. Holy smokes, he's fat. He's not big, but he's fat, chunky. But one thing you want to pay attention to, fish can be really sneaky this time of year. They'll lay right on the bottom when the water starts to get really cool, and sometimes it can be hard to mark them. So you got to be careful about trying to idle too much. One thing that I like to do is I like to fish the high percentage places, ditches, islands, points, and stuff like that when it gets really cold, and I just set my boat down and start fishing. I don't try to mark a lot of fish, because if you do, sometimes you can actually idle right over them. One of the terms that you'll hear referred to with this style of fishing is ditch. A ditch or a drop off or a depression. I'm going to tell you what that actually means. Basically a ditch, a depression, or a drop off, they're basically the same thing. If you want to think about a ditch, it's exactly what it says. If you ever looked out in the front of your yard when it rains, you know where all the water collects, that's a ditch. And basically every last one of these pockets that you'll see around here on this lake, if you can imagine if they just drained the lake and what would be left if they only left just a little bit of water in there, that is the ditch. The very bottom contour of the lake is the ditch. And a lot of times these ditches run way out here on the shoals, and you can use your mapping to find them. And that's where fish will kind of use. They'll use anywhere a ditch is adjacent to a point or a creek channel swing, or the deepest part of a ditch is where fish like to be this time of year. Like I said, all three of these terms are pretty much the same thing: ditch, depression, and a drop off. Now, as far as a depression, this lake has a lot of contour on it. There's a lot of places in this lake that's 200 or 300 feet deep. But traditionally, the fish are going to hang in, most of the fish in 50 foot or less, with a few fish that kind of occasionally roam out there to the 70, 80 foot deep. But a depression is something that we usually talk about when you have a lake that's a lot flatter. This lake wouldn't be one of them. A place like a Guntersville has a depression, 𝗙𝗍𝗶𝗹, any of those lakes in Florida, even up north, a lot of the lakes have a lot less contour. You have to go several miles to get 1 or 2 feet change in depth range. And all that is, all the depression is if you can imagine just a huge field, and then it just be a little low spot where water gathers all the time. It can be, a depression can be anywhere from a foot difference. You got a foot higher on any side, and then it's lower in the middle. That's a depression. That can be as much as a half a foot or just a couple inches. Sometimes it's just grass. It can be a depression in the grass. You have grass flat and it's just grass everywhere, and then there's a little less grass. That's a depression. So a little terminology that we like to throw around as fishermen that can be very confusing. So I want to just make sure you guys are familiar with that and you understand it, and it's going to help you catch fish. And when you're out there, you're just going to have a lot more confidence in what you're doing. There's one up there high. Got him. Dude, I saw that guy on the graph. I saw him on the graph, and I reeled it up to him and let it down, and dude, he had it in his mouth. Oh gosh. Dude, you can't tell me. If you're willing to get out here and brave the weather this time of year, that's a little better one there. He's swingable, but he's a little better. If you're willing to get out here and brave the weather in the winter time, dude, he's got it choked too. Man, he's got it choked. Look at him. TRD. Dude, there's so many ways to fish this bait. That's another thing you can talk about. I'll do a video one day on just there's so many different ways to rig that thing. Look at that thing, dude. He's about to pop. It's freaking like a balloon that's about to pop. Like if I touch him, it might just feel like it might boom, blow up if I just pop his belly right there. Dude, it's incredible. I gotta be honest with you, I wasn't that excited about doing this video today because it's been so cold, but yeah, that's fun. All right, let's try the other bait. We have another bait here that we can try too. This is the Twilight trick shots, pink and purple. We're gonna try the drop shot a little bit and see if we can get one on it. That's another good bait to use this time of year. Trick shots, this is the smaller trick shots, which I think is like a 3 1/4 inch bait, but it's a good bait. You can put this guy on a net head too. You know, typically I use it on a drop shot. It just works so well on a drop shot, but you can use it like on a shaky head or net head, anything like that. You can use it on that too. There he is, got him. Oh, he come off on the trick shots. He come off. There's one right there on the bottom and I dropped it down. Let's get another one out. I dropped it down right on the bottom. It was one just hugging the bottom so tight. And he just got away on me. Dude, he thumped it too. Here's how I'm rigging that trick shot. You see I'm just taking it in the first little 1/8 inch of the plastic and just nose hooking it. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. And you just stick it down there in 28 to 50 foot of water. Seems like a big difference, but I can turn my boat 5 foot that way and it'll be 50 foot probably. It's just, this lake has a lot of contour. They like that bright pink. I don't know what it is about. Well, actually I do. There he is, he got it again. Oh, it come off again. It must be babies down there now. But spotted bass in particular, they really like bright pink. Dude, there's a big school of fish down there. They like bright pink. I think mainly because down there, you got to think down there deep, dark like that, there's not that much light. I'm just watching my sonar. I got 3 screens up here. I've got my map so I know where I'm at. I've got my 3D imaging on the bottom, the black and gold one, and then on the very top there's my traditional 2D sonar. I watch all 3 of those when I'm out here fishing deep like this. And sometimes that traditional sonar, got him, can't even do the video. Oh, dude, he come off again. They're chasing again. I guarantee you I'll have it when I pick it up. You probably have it when I pick it up. Dude, I can't even do the video because I'm trying to talk to you guys and tell you what I'm doing. But you're just gonna have to excuse me. I'm just gonna have to catch him. So I run all 3 screens, chart, 3D sonar, and 2D sonar. Sometimes the 2D sonar pick up things that the 3D won't pick up. It's weird like that. And then some days, there's some things that 3D picks up that 2D won't pick up. So I like to run all 3 when I'm up here so I can keep a good eye on them. There, got him. All right, finally got one on the trick shots. Feels like a better one too. Feels like a better one. I'll say that on every fish. You know, if you're catching fish and you don't say it feels like a better one, are you even really fishing? So that's on the trick shots right there, dude. That's on the drop shot. Now the other fish you saw me catch was on the TRD, and it seems like I'm getting a little bit better hookup ratio on the TRD than I am on the actual the drop shot. You can see how I got that guy rigged. It's just nose hooked right in the top, number 2 aught hook, and that's a 5-pound test fluorocarbon that I'm using right there. You could get away with 6, 7, 8-pound test, just whatever brand fluorocarbon you like to use, but I definitely like to use smaller pound test fluorocarbon because it just lets the bait just do what it's designed to do a little bit better. When you use bigger lines, the bait, you just really hinder the action of the bait. You don't gain anything. There's not a whole lot for these fish to run into, even if you were to catch a bigger one out here. So you don't really do yourself any justice by going with, you know, 12, 15, 17-pound test line. All you're gonna do is make it hard to keep contact with the bottom. It'll be hard to feel the bite. There's really no win in it for you by using bigger line. You'll be much better off. 8-pound test is the sweet spot if you're worried about pressure or you know, fish an extremely clear lake. You can use 5, 6-pound test, and you're going to be. It's actually fun catching them on smaller line. So something cool to experiment with. I like to use a really good spinning rod when you're talking about using smaller line like this, because with smaller line, there's a fish on the graph. I bet he's going to bite. Smaller line, you just need to make sure that everything, your drag and your action of your rod is perfect, because if it's not, you can cause some issues with smaller line. Everything's got to be perfect. Your drag's got to be perfect, your rod's got to be perfect, or you can end up with some failures there. Found there's a couple more fish right here. I came off the side of this hump again. There's one right there, I think. Yes, yeah, it's the weirdest little bite with a drop shot. It's a weird, oh god. Ooh, I got a head shaker. Got a head shaker. With a drop shot, the bite is like a little rubber band. Like, you don't really feel much. You don't feel much with the bite on them. Come here, you little sandwich meat. You don't really feel much with them. You have to go through a lot of these. If you've ever fished in a tournament, you do have to go through a lot of those to get to the good ones. But it's just, there's a very subtle bite. It just feels like it's just tightening up. Feels like somebody attached your bait to a rubber band and like kind of just started pulling a little bit. It's just the way they bite a drop shot. It's not going to be a real hard thunk or nothing like that. And occasionally you will get one to hit really hard, but for the most part, it's just going to be just a little bit of pressure. You can be shaking it down there, and it's a little bit of pressure. A lot of that has to do with just because you're fishing so deep that a lot of your sensitivity is desensitized. Is that the right way to say it? Your sensitivity is desensitized. In other words, you can't feel it as good down there in 30 foot as you can in 5 foot. When a fish grabs your bait in 5 foot, all of that kinetic energy gets transferred pretty easily. But when you're talking about just catching one that shallow like that, it's a much different deal. So there's a few fish down there right on the bottom. I think I'm gonna go back. To the TRD, because when they're hanging really tight to the bottom like that, it doesn't seem like much, but those fish will not come off the bottom sometime to get a drop shot. They really, that extra energy to get off the bottom like that, they don't want to do that. If they can just feed down, they would rather feed down than they would feed up. It could be just the type of forage they're feeding on. I'm really not sure what it is, but I've seen this before. When we get into the deep winter months, the fish much rather feed down than up. So even dropping like a shaky head, you can do this with a lot of different baits. You can do it with shad style baits. But I've really become a big fan of fishing the Ned vertical like this. You can fish a 𝗙cie vertical as well. See, look, first time I dropped it down there, I've been shaking that drop shot, not getting bit. And the first time I drop it back down there to catch with the TRD, he bites it. I'm telling you, they really don't want to feed up in the winter sometimes. Laying that bait on the bottom and shaking it, that can be a big deal in getting those fish to bite like what you really want them to bite like. Little subtle differences like that is what's going to help you catch fish in the wintertime. I'll drop back down there again. There's still some fish on the graph here. Not many. I'm seeing one or two at a time. I'm not seeing a big wad like you can. Sometimes you'll come on some of these shoals and it'll just look like spaghetti noodles. But for the most part on this little spot, I'm seeing 1 and 2 on the bottom every once in a while. And every once in a while I'll catch one without actually even seeing anything. There's one. Ooh, that might be a good one. There's one. Uh-oh, pull and drag a little bit. Let's pull and drag a little bit. Pull and drag a little bit. TRD, baby. TRD, 1, 2, 3. You can tell I never was a hip hop artist. I like hip hop. Not an artist though. Spotted bass. We haven't caught a single largemouth today though. Aren't those guys pretty though? They're really unique. You can see the markings are a lot different on them. Just the anatomy of a spotted bass is much different than a largemouth. The mouth is much smaller. The body is more sleek. They're made more for running in open water. That's why you catch them like out here in the open water like this. Just a little gangster. They always travel in packs. You very rarely see them by themselves. In packs, they like to get out here and chase over open water. Visual predators, they like to see. I like clear water for them. I think they're very easy to target in clear water. All right, guys, that was a fun trip. I had a lot of fun out here looking for these fish, fishing out deep. It's one of my favorite ways to fish, and I promise you, if you'll start to gather yourself and fish in the wintertime, that's never good. We started off in the 20s this morning. So yeah, I was a little slow to get out here. But this is a great way to fish. You can catch fish out here in the wintertime, especially if your lake isn't froze over. I promise you there's a fish somewhere biting. Become familiar with your electronics, become familiar with fishing deep. Use the drop shot baits. You guys make sure you go and check out all the baits that you saw in this video. You can find at carlsbaitandtackle.com, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. I do videos 2 to 3 times a week. It's just my name, Brian Latimer. I promise you, you won't be disappointed, so go check it out.